Dun dun dun. How are there so many stinking humies around here? Not an orc in sight. Knife ears. Ah, boys. Wag! Welcome back to the Red Ones Go Fast. I'm old Big Mek, and in this video we're talking about gits! And not just any gits, Umi gits. Okay, also orc gits. And Eldar gits. Basically everybody but Beaky gits. Alright, first a little background. So obviously we're talking about Warhammer 40,000, though this does kind of correlate to Age of Sigmar and Old World as well, although I'm not as familiar with the rule sets. The same kind of basis of what I'm about to talk about applies, because we're talking about collecting an army, building an army, and like mustering your force for the battlefield, as opposed to like battlefield tactics, right? So we're all on the same page here. Basically what it comes down to is horde armies, the Green Tide, you know, the white shields, whatever you want to call them, but a horde army, which is a whole bunch of little measly troops that aren't worth a whole lot of points, but are really good on the battlefield because you can have so many of them and just mire up your opponent, are really, really, really difficult to collect and build and paint. To give you an idea, here is some of my guard. There's some more guard. There's some more guard. And there is some more guard. In fact, all of these right here that you can see in this shot is not even that many points. Basically, I have collected and built and somewhat undercoated kind of the maximum number of guard units you can bring in a single detachment. Now that in 10th edition we have single detachment. So I have 6 troop squads, because they got rid of, not battalions, companies. They got rid of companies and all that stuff. So all you have are squads of 10. I've got 6 squads of 10, that's 60 guardsmen. Plus I have 3 command squads, that's 5 more each, so there's another 15. And then I have 3 sets of heavy weapons teams, which is another, 6 bodies per each weapon team? So 6 times 3 of those, 12, 18. So there's another 18 with the 75 we had. You're looking at, 83 guardsmen bodies so far. And that's not even all of it, because I also have a squad of Armageddon Steel Legion and 3 squads of Valhalla and Ice Warriors. So that's another 40, plus another command squad. That's another 45. You're looking at 120, 130 bodies already, plus your individual captains and castellans and things like that. It's a lot of bodies. So I don't have to tell you that Warhammer is expensive. So when you think about, well, how much money does it take to get all these bodies on the board, right? A big part of that is it depends. For stuff like orcs, if you've got Gretchen, the Grot squad is one of the cheapest squads you can actually buy. I think it's even under 20 bucks even to this day for a squad of 10 Gretchen with a runt herd. So, you know, 3 of those squads aren't going to set you back that many teeth, but you can only take 3 of them really, right? Now you can't take, I think, 20 Grot still today, but like, you're not in it for very much. Whereas boys, you can take 30, well, you used to be able to take 30. Now you can take 20 boys in a squad, times 6 squads. That's 120 boys when they're sold in kits of 10 at 40 to 50 bucks a piece. Right, you do the math and start counting fingers and toes and you run out really fast. That's a whole lot. Now Games Workshop actually used to help out with this. They had kits like this. These are Imperial Guard Cadians that are easy build, monopose. You put them together. There were 3 unique sculpts in here, so you got 2 doubles plus 1 unique guy. And you see they're like, once you get them undercoated and put with the army, they really don't stick out that bad. And they didn't just do it for the Imperial Guard. They famously had Guardians for Craft World Eldar. and then your monopose stuff in your starter kits. So, you know, you could get tactical squads like this for Space Marines. You could get some orcs like this. You could get some Tyranids like this. They had termagants and things like that. So they used to make it, like, try to make it as easy and as cheap as possible to get that horde going. And while the choices aren't as many in this day and age, Games Workshop is still making an effort. Things like this, the Chaos Cultist, this is not that old. I want to say 2020 is when this came out, so that you can beef out some of the squads. Things like the Poxwalkers as well. You can get those kind of easy build push fits, and even right now with the Tyranids, you can get the new Tyranid stuff. They make a couple of different push fit kits and monopose kits, and just kind of easier building kits that are less expensive that you can kind of get to bulk out that army. The problem becomes, what do you do when those options aren't available for your army? And it kind of comes down to, you know, how much are you really willing to sink into it, time, money wise, right? You can buy used and save some money. You can buy something that comes in a greater quantity and then kit bash. So like, for example, right now there's a whole lot of Imperial Guard players that are looking at doing Solar Auxilia. One, because they look cooler, but two, because you get 20 in a box for about the same price as you can get 10 of the new Sculpt Cadians. So it's a lot easier to kind of bulk out that whole force. Same thing with like using their heavier duty guys as the Casterkins. You can get 10 of the new Solar Auxilia big boys for the price of 5 Casterkins. So, you know, already you're saving half on your army and you're still sticking with legit Games Workshop and all that stuff. So yeah, other than, you know, spending a bunch of money or buying used or, you know, using a different model for it, there's the, you know, super obvious 600-pound gorilla in the room, which is using third-party miniatures. Now, there is 3D printing and all that, but I mean, let's be honest, unless you're into 3D printing and already have a printer and know how to set it up and do all the things, you're paying somebody to print them. And when you pay somebody to print them, you really kind of get what you pay for, and well, you know, you're gonna need to find somebody that is gonna print in resin, is gonna print in a high print quality, and all that stuff costs money, and so you might not actually end up saving any money on it, again, unless you're already doing it on your own. There's also third-party companies that make their own plastic kits for different games that you can obviously use in Warhammer 40,000. War Games Atlantic is a fantastic example, for example, for Imperial Guard. They make a bunch of different regiments that look really cool, that are good facsimiles of the classic Imperial Guard regiments, and they are much more affordable. The unfortunate thing comes down to, well, then you go into do a tournament or a Games Workshop store or something like that, and you can't legally use the army. Somebody calls you out on it, or, you know, you're honest to start with, and that could be a bit disheartening. There's also the component of, and this is probably more true for graybeards like myself, we're into a certain aesthetic. And that was actually one thing that I've been running into with my Valhallans is I love the old school Games Workshop Valhallans. I don't like any of the new stuff. I don't like 3D printed stuff. I don't like the War Games Atlantic stuff. I don't like any of the other options that are out there. And it came down to, Games Workshop stuff is weird. They're kind of squat. They've got like fat hands and boots and heads and like chunky fat little bodies. And there's something about that mismatch of proportion that I like. Like, I like the Imperial Guard to look like that on the Warhammer battlefield. Even the brand new Games Workshop Cadians, I really don't care for. They're too skinny, and they start to look like little green army men to me. Because the little green army men, you know, the plastic kids toys, you get like 1,000 of them in a bucket, which would be a really cheap way of doing an army. Anyways, you get like 1,000 of them in a bucket, right? They're really, really skinny. All of their limbs are just super tiny and malnourished. And when you get an Imperial Guard force, especially when you paint it green, and you put it on the board and it's all skinny dudes like that, it just reminisces of that. So having a bulkier miniature just looks better to me aesthetically. Now there is another option, and well, you're gonna want to keep this one on the down low. 3D printed bits. Now, this is interesting because technically, legally, you are allowed to use aftermarket 3D printed bits on your Games Workshop minis, as long as the majority of the mini is Games Workshop and is, you know, obviously recognizable and all that. The classic Cadian Imperial Guard kit came with more torsos than legs. All right, and so you got an extra torso in a box. They also had an upgrade sprue, which is actually really hard to find. They made this really rare upgrade sprue for the old school Cadians right before the new Cadians came out. And now there's a new Cadian upgrade sprue. So when you search for the old one, you only ever find the new one and not the old one. But the old one was really good. It also had a couple of torsos. You also get spare torsos in the tank kits, the Leman Russ and the Chimera and stuff for your tank commander or guy sitting out of the turret. And then the command squad has an extra torso as well. So when you look at, okay, I'm going to buy, you know, back in the day it was a start collecting box before the combat patrol. Like, I'm going to buy a start collecting box or two for my Imperial Guard. That's going to net you, let's see, I think they had just the squad on them. But yeah, it's going to net you a couple extra bodies. You buy a couple of command squads. That's going to net you a couple extra bodies. You buy a couple of tanks. Next thing you know, you've got 10 extra bodies laying around. That's a whole squad. You get yourself a set of 10 of these online for cheap. eBay, by the way. You get a set of 10 of those, glue them onto your 10 bodies, and obviously you're going to have, you know, 10 extra sets of arms and then some, and 10 extra heads and then some, because every Games Workshop kit comes with extra heads and extra arms. And there you go, Bob's your uncle. In fact, legs are the limiting factor in every single kit Games Workshop makes, except for Tau. That's right, these little buggers right here, these Tau legs in the Tau kit, you actually get way more legs than anything else. So if you're willing to use Tau legs on your army, you could put some Tau legs together with some other bodies and really make some funkiness happen if you want. But that is the only kit that is like that. Every other Games Workshop kit, they give you extra bodies, they give you a ton of extra heads. Shoot, the new Eldar Guardians, you get 32, I want to say, sets of heads. You get a full set of 10 helmeted craft world heads. You get a full set of 10 unhelmeted heads, and you get a full set of 10 of the new guys that are like the cross between the craft world and the Dark Eldar, the Corsairs or the Pirates or whatever the heck they are. You get 10 helmets that like those, plus you get a couple for the leader guy. I don't even know what the heck they're called. But anyways, you get like 3 complete sets of heads, then a couple extra torsos, and then only 10 legs. And so if you can get yourself some 3D printed legs, you start getting more Guardians. So one of these is on 3D printed legs, and the other is on Games Workshop Original. Can you tell which is which? Honestly, neither can I. The only reason I know is the paint on the base, basically. And the reason for that is the original legs are plastic, so you can use regular old plastic glue to glue them down. The 3D printed legs are obviously resin. Plastic glue doesn't work on them, so use a little bit of super glue to glue them down. And the super glue hazes the paint that was already there. That's the only way I could tell. So if you get yourself some 3D printed legs, you can use your extra bits to make extra guys. Orc boys, for example, the old school ones with the old ball and socket containment unit on there. You famously get a ton of torsos and not a whole lot of legs. In fact, you get 11 sets of legs in the old boys kit, and I want to see you get 12 torsos. But you also get more torsos with a bunch of other kits too. So like the Ludas and Burnas give you an extra torso, the Knobs give you an extra torso. So like, again, every kit you buy, there's an extra torso in there for an alternative sculpt or the leader or something like that. And so when you have the leader, then you end up with an extra base sculpt. And so if you get yourself extra legs, you utilize those parts to make yourself fully legal. Because again, the majority, the whole model, except for the legs, is Games Workshop, right? You know, so half of the actual body, the head, the arms, the weapons, the backpacks, all the little bits and gubbins, like literally the base. Well, bases don't matter. The only thing that is 3D printed is the legs. And they don't have to be, you know, Games Workshop identicals either. I found a bunch of legs out there that are like some different poses, some running and jumping and like more dynamic legs that help add some variety to your force as well and help make it easier for you to collect your force. Now, this type of information is obviously really useful when you consider beyond just the extras you get in your box is that everybody gets extras in their box, right? So finding those bits online secondhand is very cheap. You can get a bulk bag of Orc boy bodies, or Space Marine torsos, or Acadian torsos, or Eldar Guardian torsos, basically everything but Tau torsos, right? For Tau, you get bulk Tau legs. But you can get these parts in bulk for very cheap from people that break apart kits and sell the bits and stuff. They're selling the legs for premium, the bodies for really cheap. You go buy the really cheap bodies and the really cheap 3D printed legs, smush them together, and now you're adding extra squads for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Because again, every legit box you buy has a ton of extra weapons. Got the old Orc Boy kit, famously, 10 sets of Sluggas and Choppas, 10 sets of Shootas, right? A bazillion heads, so you can you get yourself some more legs and some more torsos, and you start, plopping everything together, and next thing you know, you're sitting on 20 boys instead of 10, and your additional cost was really minor. Now, the other part of that is going to be bases. And well, for bases, that is the number one thing every kit basher should have a bunch of. There's no excuse for it. This day and age, you can buy injection molded plastic bases that are absolutely identical to Games Workshop in every way for stupid cheap. You don't need to 3D print these. You don't need resin ones. You don't need to make them out of wood. You don't need to whittle them away. You don't need to do anything crazy. Like, buy injection molded plastic ones. You can get all the sizes, all the shapes, all the everything. In fact, I have an entire drawer full of these things. And I'm not joking. Look, I've got the ovals here for the bikes. I've got large bases here. These ones are 60 mil. I've got obviously a ton of 32 mil to convert all of my orcs. Oh, look, there's more 32s, more 32s. I got 40s, I got 50s, I got everything. Now I'm going to throw a link in the description below. It is not affiliated in any way. I get no kickbacks. They have no idea I'm doing this. They don't know who I am. Anything like that. It's just my favorite place to buy bases from. They are on eBay. They do bulk discounts, and they have all of the sizes, including the really weird Games Workshop sizes, the new 28.5, which is really hard to come by and really stupid, but you need them for like the new Eldar Guardians and command squads now for your Imperial Guard. I just converted all of my command squads off of 25s and onto 28.5s. They have all those sizes. So it's a shop on eBay. They're injection molded plastic. They're great. They're a fantastic quality. You get them right away. They're not coming, on the slow boat from overseas or anything like that. And again, completely unaffiliated. By all means, go find your own if you want. But these guys rock. So that link is down in the description below. But yeah, basically, get yourself a bunch of bases in the sizes that you need, and get yourself some 3D printed legs, and use your spare parts to make some extra guys. That is the cheap way to do it. In fact, out of my 90 plus old school Acadian bodied figures, in between the heavy weapons teams and the command squads and the the individual characters, and then obviously all the regular squads, I probably only had legit legs from Games Workshop for maybe 65 of them or so. And so, yeah, I mean, you're talking about like a third of my force is 3D printed legs. Again, fully legal to go use in a Games Workshop store or in a tournament. The vast majority of the model is legit GW. It's only the legs that are replaced. That's a singular replacement part. And they're all the right size and dimensions and everything. And again, if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. Right? Like, and again, you're only replacing one part. We're not talking about copying minis. We're not talking about IP infringement. We're not talking about recasting, right? All of those things are increasingly illegal and just, really dumb. This is just, you're doing a bit. It's no different than getting a 3D printed, pauldron for your Space Marines that's got your chapter emblem on it, or, some cool 3D printed heads to make a different regiment for your Imperial Guard, or, some cool 3D printed, orc arms that have different weapons on them that just look cooler. It's just like that. You're getting a 3D printed option for your legs. It just so happens that the leg is the limiting part in GW kits. And so you're using this to be smarter and build your Horde army for much less. And again, regardless of all that, you should definitely get yourself some extra bases, because even if you're using the spare parts that only GW gives you, you're going to need a base to put them on. And frankly, having bases is the best part of being a kit basher. When it's like, oh man, this would make a really cool character, or, you know, whatever. Oh, but that one goes on a 50 mil or whatever. You can just open your drawer and whip out a 50 mil and slap it on there, and bam, Bob's your uncle. You now have this new character built out of all these spare parts because you happen to have the correct size base. I'm going to even give you an example of that. Recently, I was buying some extra bits, and I stumbled across a Big Mek's sprue that somebody had built all of her, and they left all of her spares on. Well, she comes with 2 different heads, 2 different sets of arms, on a bunch of different bits, and I kit bashed her onto some regular Cadian body and legs and a spare 28.5mm base, and now I've made my own Big Mek. So yeah, the body's not as cool, right? It's not as sculpted and stuff, but she works with my army, and she's totally the character. It's the right head, the right arms. It's from Games Workshop. It's from somebody's spare sprue. I just happened to plug her into a spare body and legs I had lying around on a new base, and yeah, I was able to add her to my army for really, really cheap because I picked this out of a scrap sprue bin. And certain kits, like the old heavy weapons team, are excellent for that kind of thing. You'll notice all the parts are on here still to do a number of heavy weapons. You've got everything you need to do the missile launcher that is, shoulder mounted. You've got everything you need to either do a las cannon or an auto cannon or a heavy bolter, because you still have the stand there and the whole 9 yards. That's because the only thing missing off of this is the mortar, which has its own stand and stuff. So really, you have 3 different heavy weapons teams out of each sprue, as long as you've got the bodies for it, right? So all these extra bodies you got laying around, you buy 1 set of heavy weapons teams, you can make 3 mortar guys, 3 las cannon, auto cannon, and heavy bolter guys, and 3 missile launcher guys, all with the original parts that you bought. And yeah, speaking of, I was really happy with how this one came out. It really told a story. You've got the guy there yelling on the horn, going, "Where the heck are we supposed to be shooting?" While the guy behind him is, waiting for confirmation. I was really happy with that one. But yeah, that's how you can be cunning. I mean, just by having extra bases, the 60 mils laying around for those heavy weapons teams, I was able to oh, okay, let me snip out all the stuff for the mortar and make a mortar team. Okay, let me snip out all the stuff for las cannon, make a las cannon team. Oh, let me snip out all the stuff for the rocket launcher and glue it on a guy, make a rocket launcher guy. That's just using all the parts that come in your kit by having some bases. So definitely a top tip there. Alright, that's enough yammering about for this video. I hope you picked up some good tips on how to make your Horde army happen quicker, cheaper, easier, and just kind of kit bashing in general, which is the bread and butter here to Red Ones Go Faster with old Big Mek. If you like what you saw, I appreciate any and all support. Watching the video is a huge help. Clicking a like button is a help. Subscribing if you're not already is a huge help. And checking out all of our links down below. Like I said, there'll be a link to that eBay store. No affiliation whatsoever. I'm getting nothing from them. They don't know any of this. Again, I really like their bases. They match perfectly. They're a great price. But by all means, if you have your own source for bases, especially, I know a lot of my viewers are overseas, and shipping on eBay stuff out of the US might be a little hard. If you've got some great overseas resources, definitely throw them down in the comments section. Failing that, come check out our Discord. Again, link in the description below, completely free. It's not, paywall or anything like that. Come on down. Our Discord has an amazing kit bashing section, and a lot of this stuff is things we've been talking about on there for the last week, including where to get bases, 3D printed parts, all that kind of stuff. Definitely, if you're into saving money on 40K, or you just like talking about it and you don't want to be, paywalled behind somebody else's Patreon, come check out our Discord. It is a huge, thriving community. Really, really cool. We got stuff there for all the armies, Kid Hammer stuff, dad jokes, you name it. It's a great place to come hang out. If you do want to support me on Patreon, that is an option down below. Whopping 5 teef a month to support old Big Mek and Red Ones Go Faster goes a long way here, and I am truly grateful to all my patrons that have been supporting me for so long. All right, last bit of shopkeeping. Earlier this week, last week, whatever it was, I was doing a live stream on Twitch for the Adepticon reveals, and afterward we had a bunch of discussions about it, both on YouTube and Discord, because most of my Twitch followers Also follow me on other platforms. And we got to talking about like Twitch really isn't the greatest for this kind of thing, and people actually preferred YouTube Live. So moving forward, I will be deleting my Twitch from the comments, and we'll be going with YouTube Live. Hope to do one of those hangouts probably this upcoming Wednesday. We'll do a test run, a hangout and paint chat, see how it goes, but expect some more live content and expect it coming to YouTube. One of the big things that was said as a positive for that is if somebody misses the live stream on Twitch, you're done. You don't get to see it anymore. If they miss it on YouTube, it's automatically uploaded to the YouTube channel. They can go back and watch it anytime. And that's huge, because I definitely like making sure that anytime we come up with tips and tricks and cool things like that, that there's a way for you to access it. So we'll be switching. All right, that's going to do it for this one. It's been wonderful talking with all of you. I'll be interacting with everybody down in the comments below. We'll see you at all the other places, and until next time, Wagon!